Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this week will be another quick episode. So this will just be sort of an episode to get out to you guys, just a sort of discussion just with myself, as I've done in the past with a few episodes, as I didn't have time to get a guest in time, and sort of stuff's been happening. But I can guarantee that over the next few weeks, we'll have some really great stuff coming for you guys in 2 weeks' time. Be a Valentine's Day special, which will be a lot of fun. Hopefully, then there'll be other guests in the future for some really good stuff. In March, I'll have an Oscars episode like I did last year. So yeah, this week I will be, and tomorrow, and in fact there'll be like 3 episodes this week, because tomorrow will be the first, so it'll be what I watched this month, January edition, and then the BAFTA nominations are also coming out this week, which I will cover, and then next week will be Oscar nominations, which I will have a guest on to discuss those nominations. And if I just looked at the schedule that I've got written out for the moment, today will be this week's episode, which I'll be talking about The Lion King, the 1994 original classic. Then tomorrow will be what I watched this month. Then on the 3rd will be the BAFTA nominations. Then next week will be a regular episode. And then the 9th, next week will be the Oscar nominations. And then the week after, Valentine's Day. And then I've got to get something planned for the 21st. And then on the 28th will be the SAG Awards. So the SAG Awards will be the reactions, my sort of thoughts and all that on those awards will be the 28th, and then March. So the 21st of March will be the Oscars episode, where I go through and discuss the Best Picture nominees, which I will have a guest on for that one. And then the week afterwards will be and then the following episode will be the reactions, as I believe the Oscars are taking place on for me, the 28th of March, 2022. So that'll be that week's episode. So, this week, as I said a little bit ago, so that's sort of the plan actually for the schedule. Right now, that'll be what is going to be happening in the future. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I'll be doing for next week's episode. I will figure something out. But this week I will be talking about The Lion King, as I recently rewatched it a few weeks ago at the beginning of the month, because I love The Lion King. I think it's a very good film to talk about, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll reiterate this point, that any episodes I do that are just with me about films, like I've done Citizen Kane in the past, I've done Buffy, and I've done all these things, those are episodes that I will they have episodes that I will most likely redo in the future with like a guest on. So it'll be like a redux of those episodes, and I'll still keep them up, of course, but I might in the future do a proper episode covering them with some guests, and I might add some more. So yeah, The Lion King. So this is it is a classic of the 90s. It's a childhood classic of not just my childhood, but of many people's. I think most people, 90% of people, after a certain period, people who grew up in the 90s and beyond, probably watched The Lion King a lot when they were a kid. I definitely remember watching The Lion King a ton when I was a kid, on Laserdisc. I'm not sure how many people listening to this are aware of what Laserdiscs are. Essentially, it is basically what Laserdiscs are. They're like the giant discs, and I believe it was around. Actually, I'm not entirely sure when exactly Laserdiscs were like a thing and were like being used. Like I think that's probably one of the more recent films that they don't make them anymore. But to be fair, digital media is not as a big deal anymore. I still collect DVDs and physical media, because I like the owning physical DVDs and that sort of thing. So yeah, I watched Lion King a ton when I was younger, and then I didn't watch it for a few years, and I watched it last year. I rewatched it last year after having not seen it in years at that point. and then I rewatched this year, and I'm actually currently making my way through a massive a big watch through of every like traditional Walt Disney animation pictures film. So I've only watched a few, so I've only watched three so far, and a couple will be discussed tomorrow for tomorrow's episode. But yeah, so I've only rewatched through three of them. So The Lion King was one of them. And that's why I figured I should do an episode on it and just sort of give my opinions and talk about the film. And Laserdiscs were invented in 1978, and so it's something that I'm just saying when they stopped making them. Sorry, give me a second. And so it was. So it was, they just stopped making them in like the in like the two in like the 2000s, I think, or they definitely stopped making as many of them because Laserdiscs is like VHS. There's no. It's very much a case of like it's something that technology has advanced. So like when DVDs became a thing, that pretty much killed VHS's VHS, and also, to be fair, it killed Laserdiscs as well. So yeah, The Lion King. It's a classic, and I think it's fair to say that I love it to bits. It's a outstanding film. It's one of my all-time favorites. One of the best animated films ever. And it's a really, really great film, and I think it's got a lot going on for it. Like, it's a film that it's sort of become socially acceptable now, I think, in society, in sort of a film, for film people to say that you like The Lion King. Like, The Lion King's one of those Disney films where there's no real shame or embarrassment to say, that you love that one. I think it's and it's like one of your favorite films. There's very few animated films, and especially Disney films, where you could say, I love that film without there being a sense of judgment to it. Like, I'm trying to think of other ones. Like, I think a lot of anime films, like just any anime film really, but I mean Grave of the Fireflies especially, which I covered on this podcast a while ago. There's certain films that very much are that like there's like it's a lot more with animated films. You're more likely to get judgment from people if you have an animated film as like one of your all-time favorite films. So, but it also very much depends on what the animated films. If you have something, like an anime film, like Grave of the Fireflies or Spirited Away or something like that, there's less likely for people to judge you due to the fact that there's more respected, and whereas Disney, there's very few Disney films that are like that. Like Lion King is one of them. Beauty and the Beast arguably could be one of them. Pixar as well, but Pixar's not Walt Disney Animations. Pixar's its own thing, but Pixar, I mean, you're less likely to get judged if you say one of your favorite films is a Pixar film due to it having more respect. And I think that's kind of an interesting sort of thing, is that like you can be judged just because you say one of your all-time favorite films is an animated film, and it's weird. And I mean, if it's a non-Disney film, you're less likely to receive judgment for saying one of your favorite films is an animated film. If stuff like stuff I've already mentioned, plus things like The Iron Giant, for example, like you're less likely to get judgment for that due to it being a more respected animated film. But The Lion King is a really, really great film, and I think it's really nice that more people are beginning to appreciate and understand how great it is as a film. And so it's got some of the most beautiful looking animation for an animated film I've ever seen. Honestly, I think it's a outstanding looking film and still looks really great to this day. Considering that it's came out nearly 30 years ago at this point. Jesus, that's a long time. 30 years since The Lion King came out in early 1994. Oh, it's 30 years. Yeah, it is 30 years. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, we opened the film, and the circle of life, and it's like one of the the film has got some of the most iconic Disney just characters in an animated film, as well as Disney songs. Like it is an outstanding film. On just like every level, it's probably my overall favorite Disney film, but I would probably put a couple Pixar films above it. In fact, I'm just gonna check my list. I've got a list of my 100 favorite films that I'm, eventually will become in a top 1,000, which will be very fun. So I'm just saying, it's definitely up there for me, and like I do love it, but I do think it's interesting that when people put it as like one of their all-time favorites, like it's a great film. Don't get me wrong, it's one of my all-time favorites, but it's weird that like people love it so much. So it is number 41 of my top 100, above only one Pixar film. Actually, that's interesting. But I've put five other animated films above it. So it's still in the top 10. It's a really really great film, and yeah. So it's a really good film, and yeah, it's got some of the most iconic Disney songs, and to be fair, songs just in general songs, because the film won a couple Oscars, which are very well deserved, for Best Original Song and Best Original Score. Although I disagree with the score, the song that it won for. I personally would have given it to Be Prepared, which I would argue is one of the best Disney songs. Although it's, in my opinion, the second best villain song, and Can You Feel the Love Tonight is the second best love song for a Disney film. For context sake, the best villain song is Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. It is the best one. Like let's just be honest, Hellfire is the best one, and I would say, that A Whole New World is the best love song ever in a Disney film. It's outstanding. It is great. It is a really really good song, and don't get me wrong, I love Can You Feel the Love Tonight, and I love Be Prepared. I think they are both really really great songs, but I personally believe that A Whole New World and Hellfire are better films in my opinion. And The Lion King received 4 Oscar nominations, which is very good for an animated film, especially since this is a pre best animated feature category being there. So it was nominated for 3 in fact Best Original Songs. No Be Prepared, which is very, very surprising. And it nominated and won for Can You Feel the Love Tonight. It was also nominated for Circle of Life and Hakuna Matata, and also won Best Original Score, which is fair enough. It's very well deserved. It's probably Hans Zimmer's best work. Well, it's definitely some of his best work. It's weird that Hans Zimmer's only won a single Oscar, but I feel like that could change this year, this upcoming Oscars, because Dune, I feel like it could win for that, but we'll find out. Yes, I mean, the songs are all spectacular. There isn't really a bad song in it, and they're all just like catchy. They're classics. People know those songs. People love those songs, which is fair enough. That they're all really great, beloved pieces of Disney music. So yeah, and then the opening, it's a perfect introduction with one of the most iconic pieces of music, with the circle of life, and it's got all the beautiful animation and the beautiful score, and it all like is just put together and combined into this really beautiful film on a sort of on a sensory level in terms of visually as well as hearing wise, audio, in terms of audio as well. It sound, the sound design, sound mixing, sound everything is outstanding, and visually it is an outstanding looking animated film, especially for the 90s, when animation has progressed so far that we're getting things like Into the Spider-Verse now, which I covered last week. Into the Spider-Verse, which has got arguably, in my opinion, the best animation of any animated film ever, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, but it still holds up magnificently well. Sorry. Then also we've also got the voice acting, which is a bit sort of meh. Like it's not like it's bad, and hell, I would argue a fair amount of the voice acting is like pretty solid. Like, I don't think there's any majorly bad voice acting. I think Matthew Broderick is probably the most out of place and the most like, that's a bit weird. He's kind of not as good. I mean, I would argue Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who voices Young Simba, is better, because I think he really sells the emotion more in this, when seeing when Mufasa dies. I think that is, he really sells the, like he really sells the emotion of that scene, and I don't cry at that scene. I've never cried at that scene, and I've never really gone that emotional at that scene. Like, yeah, it's sad, but I don't really get that invested. But I think that the Taylor Thomas really sells it and really sells the emotion. And if I'm being completely honest, the scene that gets me more emotionally is when Mufasa comes back, and Simba has that vision of seeing him, and then like the music is swelling, and then Simba, he runs back home, and then the score just swells, and it's amazing. It's amazing. It's so good. It's that's the emotional bit that gets me more than Mufasa's death. And I've realized this about myself, that I'm getting more, the older I'm getting more emotionally invested and like hit by films now. Like I recently rewatched a film that I only saw like relatively recently, but it really got to me towards the end, and I'll discuss that tomorrow's episode. Yeah, I'm just realizing that I'm getting more emotionally affected by films now, which, I guess is a sign of maturing, I guess, that the older you get, the greater appreciation you get for things, and the more emotionally invested you become in things. And yeah, so yeah, voice acting, Jeremy Irons, if we're talking about, like, is one of the best, like, voiceover performances that I've, like, ever heard. It's a legitimately outstanding performance. It's really great, and it's just incredibly great. Like, I think Jeremy Irons is an outstanding, a complete and utterly outstanding actor in the stuff I've seen him in. Putting aside his thoughts on some things, I think he's utterly brilliant in things, and I think Sky is one of the best Disney characters, not just villains, one of the best Disney characters that the company has ever produced. I can't think of a Disney character. I can't think of too many Disney characters who are as well realized and as well written and portrayed as he is. I think he's one of just one of the I think, like, and I mean, Be Prepared, again, one of the best Disney songs that has ever been made, and it's Yeah, he's completely outstanding. I think James L. Jones as well, with other great voice acting. I think he's not in it too much, but I think James L. Jones just has like the best voice for like a voiceover artist. Like he very much like feels like, to me anyway, that he just has that booming voice you want for that kind of character, and so it works really well. You know, yeah, and James Earl Jones is great in. Is just really great in things. Um, yeah, so yeah, we've got the opening Circle of Life. Then we're introduced to Scarthers, and we meet Zazu, played by Rowan Atkinson, who's also a delight in the film. And it's just a really really good film. Honestly, I think like there's some really great standout scenes, like the Hakuna Matata song. I think is a really, it's a very interesting sort of weird, like how Simba, they're just telling him like, yeah, forget about your parents. It's like, oh, my dad died relatively recently, but now I'm dancing with this meerkat and this warthog, eating bugs, But it's just, yeah, no, but it is really good though, like the way the editing, like the editing when they're walking across, like the three of them are walking and is transitioning, and as Simba's getting older, and yeah, it's transitioning, and Simba's getting older, and he's getting more, and he's getting bigger, he's getting more, his mane is growing out more. It's really great, and and he runs away because he thinks he killed his dad, which he didn't, but he's a kid, he's a dumb kid, kids believe the dumbest shit. Let's just be honest here. And then yeah, he spends years in hiding, and everyone thinks he's dead. But yeah, and I think Rowan Atkinson, I think I'm going on completely, there's no structure to this. I really like have difficulty structuring these things when it's just me. I don't know if you could help, but I think it kind of works. I guess it's a little more, I just think it keeps you on your toes, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying. Jesus Christ. So yeah, and then we meet Nala. Well, we're reintroduced to Nala, who's now an adult lion, and I think that the "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" sequence is really outstanding. I think it's a beautiful melody. It's got a beautiful way of just sort of going through things. It's the animation is also completely on point, and completely like outstandingly beautiful. It all works so well, and I love the whole, it's sort of cutting between Timon and Pumbaa's lyrics and them singing, them reacting to what's going on, and then cutting between Nala and Simba's, and that sort of how they're doing this. So that the perfect sort of punchline of like, oh, they think their friend is doomed because he's now with a female lion. I think it really works. This film has got really great comedic elements in it. Timon and Pumbaa really are really the great bits of those, comedic parts of the film. I think, but I also think the hyenas, Ed in particular, is I think really really entertaining and really funny. I think the film really sort of is able to hit all the beats perfectly. The emotional beats, the happy, the sad, the really sad stuff, but it's also able to hit the really big comedy beats as well when it needs to. I think it all just really works incredibly well. And yeah, so I think it all works really well, and I think the third act of Simba realizing about him, and actually I think I will say Rafiki is also a really really fun character, and I love his joy of like when he realizes that Simba is alive, and when he's cheering when Simba is running back home. Like I think that is it's incredibly cathartic to get that, and like catharsis is always great in a film, especially when it's done incredibly well, and it's so, and yeah, the audience, as an audience member, you're super happy, and it's super cathartic, and you just like you are really happy and enjoying the fact that you're happy with the fact that Simba's going back home, because it's everything you've been built, it's everything that the story's been building to, and when it just happens, you are just happy, and it's just really, really like amazing. It's just really it's like incredibly like it's incredibly cathartic, and it's just what you want to happen. And then the third act, which really again allows the animation to come alive, and seem so much greater, and just be shown off, when and it's great because you've sort of got like these sort of three sort of connecting stories. You've got Simba and versus Scar, and then you've got Nala and the other lionesses versus the hyenas. Then you've got Timon and Pumbaa, and then Zazu and that thing, and it's really, really great. And then of course there's Rafiki, and the final third act, final battle is incredibly well done. There's great bits of comedy, there's really great bits of emotion, there's all these great bits of just what's going on, and it is just great. And the final battle between Simba and Scar is like, everything that the film's been building to up to this point, because Scar killed Simba's dad, so you've sort of been waiting for Simba to come back and get his revenge, and he, eventually overcomes. I feel like I'm kind of skipping over some stuff because I think we've all probably seen The Lion King, so there's no real point in me going into every single individual scene, especially since this isn't like a full episode with a guest or anything. But Simba overcomes Scar, who is then eaten in a very brutal way, might I say. I think like Disney films are incredibly brutal. Like, they don't show you things, of course, but they imply things. Like the villain death in Tarzan, for example, is incredibly brutal. And it's like in this, and in things like Snow White, and all these other films, the villain death that'll come up and is very much like that is incredibly dark for a kids film. But of course we don't see it, but the implication of what happens is, and it sort of symbolizes that Scar's death means that the rain comes back, which it does, and and Simba, he is now the king of the land. Now he is now the ruler of the land, and at the end, him and Nala have a baby lion, and that would lead into the sequels, which I have not watched, so I will not be talking about them. But The Lion King is a fucking amazing movie. The remake I have seen, like 2 years ago. I think it's crap. So that's all I'm gonna say on the matter. It's crap. So if I was to put a rating on the remake, it's a 2 out of 10. It sucks. It's 2 out of 10. But the original Lion King is a perfect 10 out of 10. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, one of the best films ever made, in my opinion, one of the best animated films ever made. It is a complete and utter masterpiece, and I truly recommend, if you somehow have never seen The Lion King, you should go see it right now. Seek it out. It's on Disney Plus. Watch it. Fall in love with it. And The Lion King. It is a completely outstanding and one of the all-time greatest films, in my opinion. But I think most people would be willing to agree with that. So thank you all for listening to this week's episode. So this one was a bit sort of scattered and sort of a bit scattered. It's sort of me jumping around, and sort of going from da 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 da. This is just, it's one of those things where, it's just me doing an episode by myself, so I sort of don't have as much of a structure to do, and I don't have to adhere to as much because I'm not going to be going through every single thing. So yeah, thank you all for listening to this week's episode. Tomorrow will be what I watched this month. Later on this week will be the BAFTA nominations, which will be coming out. Then next week I'll have an episode. I don't know if I'll have a guest in time for that one. I might be another one of my lists, because I'm a big fan of doing that. And then the week after that will be Valentine's. There'll be Oscar nominations next week. Yeah, all this great stuff. So thank you all for listening to this week's episode, and I will see all of you guys in the next one. Goodbye.